The midday sun warmed the sidewalk outside a bustling café near a naval base. Laughter spilled from the tables as friends caught up, sipping coffee and enjoying the day. Among the crowd, a man walked alone, his Marine Corps jacket faded, his step uneven. A cane tapped the pavement with every slow, deliberate stride. His eyes stayed low, avoiding stares, though he felt them. Some people looked briefly, then turned away. Others didn't notice him at all. At one table near the café's edge sat a group of young men, loud and proud in their Navy SEAL shirts. They laughed over their drinks, their confidence bordering on arrogance. One of them caught sight of the limping Marine and smirked. "Should have stayed down if he couldn't keep up," he muttered, loud enough for the others to hear. The table erupted in laughter. But the Marine didn't flinch. He didn't turn. Just kept walking, the cane marking time with each painful step. He had heard it all before. Seen the mocking looks, felt the silent judgments. He had fought for the freedom these men enjoyed, but that didn't shield him from their scorn. To them, he was just a broken man, forgotten by the war and dismissed by those who never knew his sacrifice. He passed by with quiet dignity, unaware that someone nearby had heard everything, and wasn't about to let it go. Something was about to change, and for the first time in a long time, it wouldn't be the Marine who walked away in silence. At a corner table of the café, a quiet man sipped his coffee, mostly unnoticed. He wore a weathered cap pulled low, dark sunglasses masking his eyes, his posture calm and steady. But beneath that calm, he had heard every cruel word spoken to the Marine who had just passed by. He saw the limp, the pain, and the silence that followed the insult. As the Marine faded down the sidewalk, the older man stood up slowly, leaving a few bills on the table without a word. With unhurried steps, he approached the young SEAL's table. The group was still chuckling, unaware of who was walking toward them. The older man placed a firm hand on the edge of the table. "You boys think courage is how loud you are?" he asked, his voice low but steady. One of them rolled his eyes. "What would you know, old-timer?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached up, took off his sunglasses, and the air seemed to change. The laughter died. One of his eyes was a polished glass orb, and a deep scar ran from his brow to his cheek. He unzipped his jacket just enough to reveal a single patch stitched over his chest: SEAL Team 6, retired. No one spoke. No one moved. The truth hit harder than any rebuke. This wasn't just some old man. This was someone who had lived it, who knew sacrifice far beyond their youthful pride. And they had just mocked a brother. Silence clung to the café like fog. The young SEALs stared, their arrogance gone in an instant. The retired SEAL's presence was commanding, not through volume, but through truth. His single, working eye locked onto theirs, unflinching. He leaned in slightly, voice low but heavy with weight. "That man you mocked, he lost his leg in Fallujah. He dragged 2 of our own out of a burning Humvee under enemy fire. One of them," he paused, his voice catching just slightly, "was my brother." The air seemed to thin. No one dared speak. He could have stayed down, but he didn't, the old man continued. He chose pain over safety. Sacrifice over survival. And you, he glanced at each of them, you laughed at him. The table of young men, once so loud and sure, now sat frozen. Red crept up their necks. Their shirts, once a badge of pride, now felt like a weight. They hadn't just insulted a stranger. They had insulted a hero. A brother in arms. And worst of all, they had done it in front of someone who knew the cost of that man's sacrifice firsthand. The old SEAL straightened slowly, his silence louder than any lecture. And the weight of their mistake settled in deep. None of them looked at each other. There was nothing left to say. Only the sting of truth, and the beginning of a change they didn't know they needed. The park was quiet, just the rustle of trees and distant chatter of children playing. On a weathered bench, the Marine sat alone, hands resting on his cane, eyes watching the ground. The pain in his leg was familiar, but the ache in his heart, deeper. He had walked away from the café expecting nothing. Then, footsteps. Slow. Approaching. He looked up. The same group of young seals stood in front of him, but they were different now. No smirks. No bravado. Just solemn eyes and a quiet kind of respect. Their leader stepped forward, standing at attention, then raising a crisp salute. "We're sorry, sir," he said. "We didn't know who you were, what you'd done. We weren't worthy to wear this shirt today." Another SEAL stepped forward, pulling off his Navy SEAL shirt and folding it respectfully. He held it out with both hands. "If you'll let us, we'd like to take you to lunch. And just, listen." The Marine's breath caught. His eyes misted. For a moment, he said nothing, then managed a nod. "Only if I can talk about my buddies. The real heroes. The ones who didn't make it home." The young men nodded in unison. "Yes, sir. No orders. No rank. Just a simple moment of understanding, a chance to make it right." And in that moment, something shifted. Not just in them, but in him too. The silence of pain was being replaced by the voice of remembrance. The café buzzed with life again, but something was different. At the same table where mockery had once echoed, a new kind of silence had settled, one of attention, reverence, and respect. The Marine sat among the young SEALs, a quiet smile on his face as he spoke. His voice, once heavy with the weight of isolation, now carried warmth as he shared stories, about the brothers he fought beside, the sacrifices made, the laughter between the chaos. The young men leaned in, hanging on every word. No one checked their phones. No one interrupted. They weren't just listening, they were learning. At a nearby table, the old SEAL sat again, sunglasses back on, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He sipped his coffee, watching the scene like a man who had seen too much, and now, just enough. Around them, other café patrons began to notice. One whispered to another. Heads turned, not in judgment, but in quiet admiration. Then, a small act, a stranger walked over and silently placed a receipt on the table. "Your meal's covered," they said with a soft smile. Someone else clapped. Then another. It wasn't loud or showy, but it was honest. And at the center of it all, the Marine sat still, looking at these young men who had mocked him only an hour before. This time, he didn't lower his head. This time, he belonged. And for the first time in years, his heart was quiet. His battle, if only for a moment, felt won.